Part 2. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 12. Chapter 11. Ecchi Flower Hall. Harem gave Xianxia the real person to sit down in the main seat, and waited for the concubine to deliver the incense stick. Harem signaled Cai to take the concubine waiter out of the hall. Only he and Yewei, the second wife, and an unsolicited third wife who relied on leaving. Xianxia's real man didn't have any outsiders, so he made a long story short. A slap on the waist storage bag, a book as white as jade appeared in his hand, then he put the book on the 8 Immortals table, slowly pushed it to Harem, and said, "Ecchi Bao book, Manmo, I have been grateful for the past 5 years. Now the original is returned. Please check with General Yet." Ah. The real person is very kind. Harem reached out and held the other side of the book, pushed it back, and laughed. My family is mortal, and it is useless if you want it. If you need it, just take it. Unexpectedly, Xianxia's real man also laughed and pushed the book back. General Ye is polite, but this thing is also useless to Manmo. After reading it for 5 years, he also showed it to many elders. They also don't recognize the text on this treasure book. According to Manmo, this is not the magic weapon of Xiandao's books. Harem was taken aback by surprise. This book has been preserved by the Ye family for nearly 1,000 years. It has been passed down from generation to generation. Each generation tells the next generation that this is a fairy family book, but now Xianxia's real person denies it. Harem questioned, "Real people, if it wasn't for the fairy tale, why is this book as smooth as jade for thousands of years, and why are the pages of this thin, wing-like book not damaged by the knife?" Xianxia was not angry, but said lightly, "This book is a silk weaving by Bingmo Han, naturally invaded by water and fire. Although the silk of Bingmo Han is precious, it is not too rare. General Ye, this thing is really useless to Wanmo, let the Ye family keep it safe." People say this, Harem is not good to say, how can they force others to collect garbage? In fact, Harem had resentment in his heart. Did you say it was useless and borrowed it for 5 years? Xianxia's true temper is not bad, not anxious, and not annoyed. Wang Mao stayed in the early decades of foundation construction, seeing that no progress will be reached. Xiao Yuan will be here. This is where I look for ancient classics. I want to use this to break through and not hide. General, Manmo has traveled to the major repairs of the Immortal Sects, Elixir Mountain, Qingming Valley, Huajian Pai, and Sword Dock in the past 5 years. Even the corpse cult of the demon has gone. Fortunately, Manmo friendship is very wide. Those big martial arts all have their predecessors help Wanmo to see it, but they all agree that it is useless. It is not rare in terms of materials, and there is no aura flow in it. From the content, no one knows it. What font is this end? Xianxia said, taking another shot of the storage bag, holding a green flat small square bucket in his hand. This is the spiritual card used by the cultivators to store the recipes of the books. They can be read as long as they put the knowledge of Xianxia into the world. This was the case 10,000 years ago, so no predecessor of Xianxia would write the recipes and exercises in the books used by mortals. In addition, unless it is the first level exercises for beginners who don't have a sense of knowledge, even so, what's the use of this entry for my husband? Xianxia's words were stubborn. Although Harem didn't fully believe it, he still believed it for the most part. He never thought that the baby passed down from generation to generation in the Ye family turned out to be worthless trash, let alone the frustration in his heart. My Ye family has been kept for hundreds of years. I didn't expect that it wasn't a fairy tale. I let real people run for 5 years. Ye was really. Harem shook his head in frustration. Originally, he wanted to make the Xian family owe other people's feelings. Now it seems that he owes the other person's feelings, and he mutters in his heart, how can he mention the worship of the teacher? Oh, the general doesn't have to be frustrated. It may be that Wanmo can't see the pearls. The general still keeps it properly. After all, the cold silkworm is not a common thing. The real man Wan Xian comforted 2 sentences and put the lingon back into the storage bag, but took a small bottle out. Borrowing, I do want to report it. This bottle is the innocent Dan I brought back from the elixir mountain. There are 20 in it. Although this is not good for the cultivator, it is still possible for you to get rid of all diseases and extend the efficacy of more than 10 years of life. Hearing the efficacy of Ling Dan, a few people in Ye family's eyes lighted up. The brightest one was Ye Harem. One was more than 10 years old. If 20 were eaten together, wow, then I see live more. 200 or 300 years. Wan Xianzhen probably guessed his thoughts, and smiled. Stainless Dan, each person can only eat 1 capsule in his life, and the second one is invalid. Yaharan's eyes darkened a lot, but even so, it is also a good item to take for his girlfriend or take it as a gift. However, he refused. Yamao was kindly received by the real person. Whenever the real person needs it, my Ye family is driven to do so, not to want the benefit of the real person, not to mention the fact that this book does not help the real person. How can you accept a live gift? Wan Xian really thought that Yeharan was embarrassed to accept it, but she shied away and found out that the other person actually refused. I am sorry that Wan Xian's turn is next, and he took back the elixir and said, General Ye, no matter what, you will lend me the book for 5 years. When the old man owes you a favor, if you need it later, you will speak directly. When Yeharan heard the great joy, he couldn't hold back anymore, and quickly got up and worshipped in front of Wan Xian's real person. Ye really has an unforgiving invitation. Wan Xian was so amazed that the stranger had to collect elixir, and there was something waiting for him. General Ye said, why do you have to do this gift? Wan Xian real person quickly walked over to help Yeharan. Yeharan, however, could not afford to kneel, and said, a real person, longing for Xiandao for a long time. I want to ask the real person not to give up. I accept Ye as an apprentice. Ye knows that his qualifications are dull, but he delivers water for real people. It works. Wan Xian real smiled, walked back to his seat, raised his hand, a strong attack. Yeharan could no longer kneel. Hearing Wan Xianzhen smiled, how can General Ye be the backbone of the country? How can I stop Hong Chen from going uphill to practice? And, I just tested the general just now, and you do have the qualification to cultivate an immortal. Even if you return to the mountain, you will 1 step forward. Yeharan had already guessed the result, followed by saying, then ask the immortal to trouble, check the qualifications of my children in Ye family. Yema cannot go on the way to immortality. If a child can become an immortal, this life is enough. Wan Xian real person shook his head. How easy is this spiritual route to find? However, thinking about just saying that he owed him a favor, he should not refuse to be so direct. Besides, if he finds a good apprentice, it also counts as a contribution to his family. Wan Xian's words changed to his mouth and said, then ask them to come and see. Thank you for your success. Yeharan overjoyed and said to Yewei, hurry up and call your brother and sister. Next door, the brothers of the Ye family, who had been waiting, could not wait at this moment. Xiao Wu, do you think we will have the qualification of Xiaoxian? Ye Wenyi asked in a low voice uneasily. I don't know. If you can be a god, then you can live forever and fly in the sky. Ye Wu thought of the benefits of the god, and his heart was both excited and nervous. I'm afraid our qualifications are not enough, Ye Wen said wistfully. We don't have the qualifications, and they won't. Ye Wu looked at the brothers behind him and whispered, I should have called a fool. Mother told Ye Cai not to tell him. Ha, fool wants to do it too. Where is the fairy? I heard him and his husband inquire about the fairy that day. Toad wants to eat swan meat, and doesn't look in the mirror. Wen snorted softly from his nose, and said, "Mother did it right, he's an idiot who can read well, and wants to be a fairy, dream. Call him only to humiliate our family. Look at his mother's face, really, like Toad, haha, mother and child are Toad." Wen was so happy that he saw Ye come to greet them to the flower hall. Wu hurriedly said, "Brother, don't laugh, Dad and brother haven't found the fool yet, don't remind them." "Oh, right, right." The flower hall. Wan Xian was closing his eyes and beard, with a faint smile on his face. He hadn't noticed yet. Now he gives a look, and there are a group of teenagers in each of the left and right yards. They all seem to be ready. This Wangsuan real person has a good temper and no blame, but he still ordered a little Yeharan and opened his eyes, saying, "General Ye, this cultivation of immortals is required, and we must have qualifications that ordinary people do not have. In our words, the immortal is spiritual. Roots, those with spiritual roots, 1 in 2, since you have prepared a lot of people, why not let them come out together?" Yeharan was exposed and prepared 2 batches of people, with a red face and embarrassed. "The real person is A and can't hide anything from you. There are many children who are really prepared, just because they are not blessed. Those who have spiritual roots are hard to come by. They only have fate, and they must not be forced, otherwise they will be counterproductive." Wan Xianzhen lived with a lesson. Yeharan, holding heavy soldiers in front of tens of thousands of people, did not dare to speak out in front of the immortals, and spoke more carefully. The real lesson is that there is indeed something wrong with the next step. Please forgive the real person. Then let them come together, and you can return the feeling of borrowing your books, but if there is no spiritual root, that's God's will. Wan Suanzhen's words are very clear, this qualification is not returned thanks to your friendship, we do ntou ye family anymore. Even if none of those children have spiritual roots, it's God's will, they still owe each other. In fact, Wan Xian really thinks that this is also good. The cultivator is most afraid of having trouble in his heart, that is, obsession. The practice is about carelessness. If you always remember to owe someone a relationship, it will affect your mood. Yeharan certainly understood the meaning of Wan Xian's real person, and said quickly, "This time, I will never disturb the real person in the future." Then he asked the second lady to call out the children and teenagers on the other side. At this time around 2 p.m., the sun was hanging high, and the people were sweating, but the front of the flower hall was full of young men and women in the dozens, but they did not feel hot at all. They were all nervous and clenched their fists waiting for your turn. They all know that the old man inside is a god. If you are regarded by a god, you will be accepted as a disciple. After more than 10 years, you are also a god. Wow, you will never grow old. Like a fairy, drooling. But imagination is always beautiful, but reality is cruel. When these teenagers saw the old gods shaking their heads one by one, their expressions followed the death sentence. The most wonderful expression on his face was Yeharan. Every son and daughter came over, he was full of expectations, but when the real person shook his head without exception, he looked down again. "It's okay, there's nothing down there. There aren't any children in the Ye family. It's hard to guarantee that the children of relatives, friends, and servants of the Ye family aren't there. One of them can do it," he kept comforting himself, hoping to become a disappointed and still cruel performer. Next, Yeharan was almost desperate. But the next one didn't show up. Yeharan looked up. He was completely desperate. It turned out that there was no next one. All the boys and girls in the full yard had been tested, and none of them had a spiritual root. Wan Xian really saw this kind of scene a lot, and comforted, "General Ye must not be depressed. There are 1 or 2 among the spiritual roots, and these 2 still belong to the Xianxia family. A mortal family like yours, 1 is also very important. Normal. Let the real person laugh." Yeharan smiled, but the smile was uglier than crying. He had a good calculation. Who knew that there wasn't even one? This was too much. He didn't know what to say. But when looking at Wan Xianzhen in despair, he suddenly heard Ye Wei say, "Father, it looks like, the younger Ye family is still missing one." Who? Ye Harem, like a drowning man, grabbed the straw and shivered. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 13. Chapter 12 Spiritual Roots. "Betty is not here," Ye Wei replied. In fact, Ye Wei didn't find it at first. After all, Ye Kong never appeared in such a lot of people before. Everyone has been used to the absence of the eighth, and can't even think of this person. And more importantly, Ye Wei's dreams of fairy are also on his own. But when he knew that he had no spiritual roots, he felt unspeakable and sad, but after all, he was the mother and father of Ye, and would look at the problem from the perspective of his father, so he also hoped that there would be spiritual roots in others. So he looked back and forth, hoping to find a spiritual root. But he was disappointed in the end, but looking around, looking at it, there was a problem, as if there was one missing. Who is missing? Really unexpected. Ye Wei simply used stupid methods to count one by one. I am the boss, the second brother, the third brother, the fourth brother, the eighth brother is not here. As soon as Ye Wei said this, Ye Harem opened his eyes. Sure enough, he did not see Ye Kong and was angry. How could this fool not do such an important thing? It's too much. Although he hated the boy abominably, but this was the last hope. He had been disappointed so many times, don't mind being disappointed again. Real man, sorry, there is another son next. I don't know why he hasn't arrived yet. Please ask the real man to wait for a while. I will let him call him. Wan Xian had checked dozens of people, didn't care about one more, sat down straight, waved his impatience, then go back quickly. Xiegenren Ye Harem reached out and called Ye Cai, just to let him call Ye Kong, but someone was upset. The second wife is unwilling. She can make others immortal, but she cannot make Ye Kong immortal. Why? If Ye Kong becomes a fairy, then Chen Juniang's status will be high. How could she let a woman with an ugly face and a poor family step on her feet? What's more, Ye Kong beat her son and teased her girl, still making her anxious. She must stop this possible happening. General, this matter is impossible. The second wife stood up and said, Ye Kong is arrogant and unruly, stubborn, and has a fierce temperament. He must report that if he practices immortality, it will be a disaster for my Ye family. Blessing. The second wife was indeed poisonous enough to say so in front of the real man Wan Xian, making the real people think that this is a devil-like existence. Even if there is a spiritual root, he will not accept him. Ye Harem would understand why Ye Kong didn't show up. The dare is the second wife's stubbornness, and now it is nonsense in public, even if Ye Harem is angry. Presumptuous, Ye Harem was furious. You woman is bad for me. Although Ye Kong has a bad temper, he is only 12 years old after all. How can you say that is so unbearable? Ye Harem was afraid that Wan Xian was really being taken. The second wife spoke around Wan Xian's real person quickly. Let the real person make a joke. In the unmanaged family, my 8 sons have been chaotic and articulate since they were young. They have just opened up recently, and they may have some words that are ridiculous. People think he... Well, let's ask him to go. Wan Xian's face remained unchanged. Yes, Ye Harem glared at Mrser again, trying to get Ye Cai to call people, fearing that he would play something famous. Let Ye Wei do it properly. Ye Kong was reading a book there and was called by Ye Wei, so he quickly followed. On the way, he heard that the immortal wanted to accept the apprentice, and his heart was overjoyed. Ye Kong didn't expect to find a fairy for a long time, and now he took the initiative to appear. He really broke through the iron shoes and found nowhere. There is no spiritual root. He is not too worried about this issue. First of all, he can feel the aura. Besides, he can still enter his own purple house in Lingtai. Can others do it? Obviously he is different. Under the scorching sun, those teenagers who did not have a spiritual root after the examination did not dare to leave. They who couldn't feel the sun just now, why do they feel that the sun is so hot? The pores on the back are as uncomfortable as ants crawling. Since it is impossible to become a fairy, they expect to be dispersed sooner. But at this time, they saw Ye Wei coming in with Ye Kong. They didn't hear the conversation outside the flower hall. Now they saw Ye Kong, how surprised they were. Brought the fool too? Oh, we are so hungry that we have no spiritual roots, what will he have? It must be gone. If he has spiritual roots, the Huang I raised also has spiritual roots. Haha, he's not as good as a Huang. The dog is still human. Ye Kong is an idiot and an idiot. Like a pig in a pig pen, he would hum when he was full. Ye Kong walked in and was surprised to see so many people. At first he thought he was late, but after hearing it, they all checked. Ye Kong Duo was savvy, and immediately guessed that no one had a spiritual root before thinking of calling him. His immortal is so stupid, so bullying. Even irrelevant people are here, and he is still the old man's last name yet? This teacher doesn't even worship, I don't owe you Ye family love. Ye Kong was angry and muttered in a word, go back. Ye Wei, who had just entered the Bao, came out and saw Ye Kong going. He quickly followed, eighth brother, what are you doing? Ye Kong's grievances are very clear. He can provoke others, but he is not good at Ye Wei. Brother, I went back to read a book. Ye family has me and I am almost the same, so many brothers and so many, handsome young man, what do you want me to be a fool to do? Ye Kong suppressed a bitter smile. Ye Wei immediately understood and whispered, it was Ye Cai's ghost. My father and I didn't know about it. My father had reprimanded them just now. You can't go. If you go, you will give me and my father a face. Ye Kong was dubious, looked up into the hall, and was dragged in by Ye Wei. There was nothing he could do, but only Ye Wei dragged him in. Wan Xian's real person kept his eyes closed, but the consciousness saw it all clearly. When Ye Kong stood before him, his eyes opened. Call Grandpa immortal soon, Ye Harem urged. Grandpa Fairy Ye Kong was in a bad mood and was looking at him boldly. The two eyes were paired, and Wan Xian real frowned. Why is your soul hurt? The leaves are hollow in a pinch. I rely on it, her mother is a fairy, and I can see that my soul is hurt at a glance. At the moment, he said half-truth, saying that when he was seated, he couldn't do anything, and he was hurt, but he couldn't dare to say the encyclopedia of spells in his head. Wan Xian really did not doubt, and smiled, cultivate yourself? You are too brave, come on, put your wrist out and let me see if you have spiritual roots. Wan Xian's real person took Ye Kong's wrist, everyone around him looked at the real person's face, and the second wife kept praying, no, no, shake your head. Ye Harem also stared at Wan Xian's face, his iron fist clenched tightly, and his knuckles were bloodless and blue. Ye Kong was the last hope. Can you say that he is not nervous? This moment seemed to be extremely long. Everyone held their breath. The second wife prayed for a real person to shake her head, while Ye Harem nodded. But who knows, Wan Xian didn't shake his head or nod his head, he smiled. Of course, it is not a happy laugh, nor a mockery, but a little ironic laugh. Ye Harem didn't know the meaning of Wan Xian, and asked quickly, live, dog, is there hope? No. Wan Xian real person loosened Ye Kong's hand and said lightly. Ye Harem didn't give up, and asked, why is that real person laughing? Ye Kong Gli is also scolding, shit, no hope, what kind of bird hair do you laugh at? Shake me? Just listening to Wan Xian real person laughing, I laughed that his qualifications were too poor, the spiritual roots were so cluttered as to be unimaginable, and it was the worst false spiritual root I had ever seen. A false spiritual root, Ye Harem and Ye Wei did not understand what it meant. Then Wan Xian explained it again. It turns out that this spiritual root is the perception of the aura. If you can sense the aura, then you can cultivate the immortal. If you can't even feel the aura, what about absorbing the aura to nourish the inner den? However, this spiritual root is also different. The best is called single spiritual root, also called heavenly spiritual root. That is to say, this immortal is particularly sensitive to the aura of a certain attribute. If these people are equipped with the same attributes, he cultivates. That's called fast. There was no bottleneck before the UN infant period. It was the best qualification. Only one or two came out in the millennium. Some people ask why Shan Lingen cultivates fast. The answer is simple, 2 words, pure. Regardless of gold, diamonds, elixir, or spiritual root, the more pure and better, the more impurities, would that be a good thing? Below the single spirit root, that is the double spirit root. Although it is not as good as the single spirit root, the double spirit root is not bad. If it is a thundering root with a mixture of wood and earth attributes, or ice with a mixture of water and wood attributes Ling Gen, that's also very good. It's called mutant Ling Gen, which is also very rare, and some dual attributes are not good, such as fire attribute and water attribute. These two attributes are in conflict with each other. It's easy to get out of fire during practice. Into the magic. Next is the 3 attributes. This is more. Many of the immortalists who build the base period are all 3 attributes. Unless there is an adventure, they generally do not pass through the Jindan period, like Wangsuan real person. The next is the 4 attributes. This is already a pseudo-spiritual root. Generally speaking, it is impossible to build a foundation in this life. It is even difficult to reach the top of the gas refining period. However, because the majors do not receive good qualifications, 4 false Chinook roots of attributes are also collected. The worst is Wollingen, which is no longer a general mess. Cultivation will never have a future. It will do more with less. This kind of person will have difficulty in getting started even if he has practiced his whole life. According to the Wangsuan real person's pulse detection, Yekong belongs to this 5 spiritual roots, and the 5 auras are very chaotic. Their qualifications belong to the lower ones of the lower ones from the perspective of Wangsuan real people. This is not even considered lifelong practice will not break through the early days of gas refining, and the early days of gas refining are not necessarily better than the masters of martial arts in the world, so it is better to learn martial arts at home. Ye Harem was disappointed at this moment, but this last life-saving straw was still reluctant to let go, and begged, "Real man, even though the dog is of poor qualifications, he can still be regarded as having spiritual roots. He is now too late to learn martial arts. Even in the early days of gas refinement there was a fairy in the Ye family." Ye Kong was not reconciled to the loss of Xian Yuan, and pleaded rare, "Yeah, the immortal master is on top. Although the boy is of poor qualifications, we can suffer bitterly." Wan Xianzhenren interrupted with a sneer and laughed ironically, "The achievements of the cultivators are determined by the spiritual roots, and it is not enough to endure hardships, otherwise all the martial arts will go to the docks to collect the hard labors." Yehalo was depressed, "I really filed it, I missed the time to learn martial arts, and Xianxian is the most spiritual root. Isn't it really a way to live?" Looking at this matter again, Yekong felt that he had to seize the opportunity and show it, maybe the old would change his mind. Yekong made up his mind and said in a loud voice, "The immortal master said this is bad. I heard that the achievement of the immortal is not determined by qualifications, nor is the best spiritual root." "Oh," Yekong said this, and everyone was staring at Yekong. Ye Harem was a little worried, could he be wrong? What do you know as immortal? However, Yeharan didn't say anything to stop, hoping that there might be a turnaround. I don't understand, I would like to hear the details. Wan Xianzhen was also curiously waiting for him to say. Ye Kong smiled and said to Wan Xian's real person, Hui Xianxi, I think that the biggest determinant of the future success of the immortal is not qualifications, but the fate. The best spiritual route is not the Tianling route, it is the route of bitterness. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 14. Chapter 13. Xianyuan is easy to understand, that is the fate with Xiandao, or you can say luck. Some immortalists have good qualifications, but they are unlucky, the tortuous path is twisted, they accidentally go into the magic, or they are beheaded when they just debut, and they have even been killed by poisonous insects when the immortal spiritual masters died in Jadan. Funeral. On the contrary, some immortal practitioners have a low level of qualifications, but they have an excellent immortality. They walked out of the aisle and kicked to Lingbao foreign objects. They went to the toilet to pick the ancient secret code, and fell down the cliff to encounter the shocking soldiers. In fact, the qualifications of many old infancy monsters in the Kangnan continent are bland, and they have all gained a lot of immortality, so Yekong said that it makes sense. Wan Xianzhen really smiled with a beard this time, and his eyes were re-examining the boy, but what he didn't understand was what the bitter root is. Yeharan saw the real man looking at his son with a smile, and he was relieved. Not to mention that the fool and the genius could really transform each other. The kid didn't know where to look and laughed at the fairy. Xianyuan can understand, that nephew talks about the bitter spirit root, right? Wan Suanzhen's words were kind. Yekong hurriedly replied, in fact, the bitter spirit root is what I said earlier, that I can endure hardships. The journey to Xiandao is extremely difficult and dangerous. You must have the determination to abandon your thoughts and practice hard efforts, reluctance to play or whatever, in the end, can be nothing. Haha, it's reasonable, General. Yeah, you have a good son. Wan Xian's real man raised his palm and smiled. His eyes also admired the young boy who was only 12 years old. Dogs are so used to being daring. Real people don't want to see strange people. Although Yeharan said this, he was thumbs up in his heart, boy, doing a good job, there is a door to this. Yekong also laughed, and had imagined that he was flying in the sky with his flying sword, but who knows that Wan Xian's words would bring him back to his original form. Although you are right, the old man cannot accept you. Yekong, who was still flying in the clouds, fell into the valley, staring. Why? Because your character is not suitable for cultivating immortals. You have a straightforward personality, impulsive personality, and a straightforward personality. You also like to be in the limelight, with sharp words and boldness. Am I right? Yekong froze for a moment and replied, yes, all. So I can't accept you. The cultivator talks about calmness, no desire, and the mediocrity in the cultivation world is also clumsy and forbearing. Everything goes with nature, and a character like you is extremely unsuitable for cultivating celestial beings. Wan Xian's real words beat Yekong to death. In despair, Yekong couldn't help but retort, the immortal is wrong again. Is NT the immortal practitioner wanting nothing? No. The immortal practitioner pursues heaven and seeks eternal life. This is what their desire. Every time the realm rises, every time the power increases, is NT the cultivator impressed? Is NT he excited to get a powerful magic weapon? Is NT the immortal himself? Why is there no desire? In a few words, Wan Xian was actually asked a dumb question. Yeharan was afraid that he would annoy the real person, and he shouted, presumptuous. How can you kid blame the fairy? However, Yeharan didn't yell, but he couldn't help but yelled. Although Xianxian is magical, in my opinion, It's the same reason as training Wushu. It's really difficult, and it's because you don't have enough power. If a cultivator has reached the top of the immortal road, why should you forbear? This time Wan Xianzhen found a loophole in his words and reprimanded, "You're right. If I were the first immortal in the world, of course I don't need to forbear, but how many people are really standing at the top of immortal road? Afraid? I'm afraid of you, a brave kid who has no strength. You know why I don't accept you? The biggest reason is that you can't afford to lose your character for Huangzhou Wanjia." Wan Xian really pointed at Ye Kong and rebuked, "Your qualifications are poor. If this impulsive temper is not changed, no martial art will dare accept you." Ye Kong was also said to be angry, sneer, "Male husband, when you laugh, when you scold, you yell. If you are afraid of the West, you will roar. If you are afraid of the East and the West, there will never be a day for you with a tail. How weak is this person? The necessary patience should be there, and I can do it, but if everything is to be patience, if you meet the opponent, you have to be patient, when you meet the same door, you have to be patient. It's interesting to be afraid of people playing pigs and tigers when you under cultivation. Is it fun? Also, you have to put up with food, but you have to put up with beautiful women. This immortal is too boring. Even if you live 1,000 years, it's just a millennium joke." After Ye Kong said it, he couldn't help but ask spoofly, "Dare to ask the immortal master Gao Shao geometry? Is it still a virgin now? Is your life fun?" "You're too much," Ye Heiren finally couldn't help it. He hadn't stopped the previous fierce argument, hoping that his son could convince a real person, but he didn't expect the kid to ask if he was a virgin. What's more important is that Wan Xian real person was asked with a blush and a thick neck. It seems that he really asked, and the second wife and the third wife couldn't help but laughed sharply. Ye Heiren couldn't do anything. It really annoyed the immortal teacher that he was so angry that he had no reason to blame him. The improper character of the boy was really impressed by the immortal teacher. "You're too much," Ye Heiren yelled and shook his hand a big slap. If he was really angry this time, this slap beat Ye Kong out of control. Ye Kong grunted, and was fanned down on the main seat of the 8 immortals next to Wan Xianzhen. This time his half-face swelled quickly, and he couldn't stand on the edge of the big table. But just as he threw himself at the table, his eyes flickered sharply, and something in front of him caught his eye. "Real person, Shuzi is arrogant and bold, it is really abominable, and I blame me for not being strict with my family. Please do nt blame the real person, forgive me." Ye Heiren couldn't help asking Ye Kong, and hurriedly paid for Wan Xian. Unexpectedly, Wan Xian's real man was annoyed first, then cyanotic, and after Ye Heiren's reparation, he laughed again. "General Ye, you gave birth to a good son. Although the words are overdone, you can think about it carefully, the sentence is logical. The old man has no fun in the 150 years of his life. Now it is really boring to think about it. Marry a lady, haha, still wake up to me." Wan Xian real person patted Ye Kong lying next to him, stood up and said, "Goodbye, General Ye has come here, this is goodbye." "Jack, don't you thank the real person for being generous," Ye Heiren stomped on Ye Kong's again. "Oh, forgive me, thank you, I love to talk nonsense, slap, oh, my dad is too heavy to fight." Haha. Wan Xian real laughed a while, and then urged, "Although you say it makes sense, you can still be low-key, remember, low-key when you have no strength in the world of cultivating immortals or mortals." Yes, Ye Kong hurriedly answered, but the sight of his eyes remained on the table, not because he did not respect the real person, but because it was so attractive to him that he couldn't open his eyes when he saw it. What can attract Ye Kong in this way is, of course, not a beauty, but the white scroll on the table. This Ye Wanbao book, which was finally inquired by Wan Xian's real people, was identified as useless, but it seemed that he had sucked Ye Kong's soul, just like an old ghost seeing a woman's chest and couldn't leave it. That trashy book made Ye Kong forget that the pain was so gazing because the cover was written in Chinese characters. 5 Elements Rising Immortals. God. Turned out to be Chinese characters. I am not alone. A voice in Ye Kong's heart was shouting, the excitement was simply not words to express. Ye Wei took him from the academy and told him something, such as this book of Yeji Bao, and was considered garbage by the real man Wan Xian. This thing is to others, but it is the treasure to Ye Kong. Who told him to come from the earth, or is it Chinese? If you come to the United States, you do nt know the contents even if you know it is a Chinese character. Most importantly, look at the title of the book, that's the Book of Xianxia. Ye Kong could not care about others, and while Ye Harem greeted Wan Xian real person to leave, he quickly took the treasure book on the table in his hand, which turned over casually, even more overjoyed. This is indeed an immortal cultivation method. It was written by an immortal master who came across the earth thousands of years ago. The first paragraph of the opening book makes people feel a sense of intimacy. Hey, friends, welcome to Kang. Is it very happy to see the familiar text in the South China? I am also very happy, but I guess I can't see you anymore. I've already passed the sky disaster, and I haven't spent much time in this world. The 5 Elements Ascension Sutra is the summary of my practice for more than 1,000 years. Let us take it as a meeting gift for my fellow villagers. But when you read this book, maybe it's been 1,000 years, or 10,000 years. Who knows? Or maybe no one on this continent knows Chinese. This world is really humming. Remember, don't believe anyone. If you can, I really want to go back to Earth. You understand these words. Somehow, Ye Harem had returned to the flower hall, because Wan Xian's real person listened to Ye Kong's words, and took a rare high-profile one, and did not go out. He stood at the door of the flower hall and left the instrument. So Ye Harem came back so quickly. Ye Kong quickly turned his head. Wan Xian's real person became high profile, but Ye Kong's low-key, thinking of Wan Xian's exhortation to leave, and the message from the earth fellow just now. Ye Kong immediately smiled. How can I recognize these words, really strange words, like squares? I don't know what you look at. Ye Harem was still angry, grabbed the treasure book from Ye Kong, and reprimanded, you son of a son. Do you know how dangerous today? You can scold and laugh at fairy master. Ye Kong bowed his head and muttered, the fairy is also reasonable, and real people say I'm reasonable. The second wife, who was suffocated behind, finally had a chance to speak, and hummed, I said that you shouldn't let him come over to him, it would only embarrass the Ye family. Funny, Ye Harem glanced at Mrser, and she hated the woman too much. If she didn't interject, maybe the real person would take Ye Kong down, but Ye Kong's kid is also abominable. You can't be polite with Xianxia? Maybe the real man Wan saw your temper was not so bad, so he took you back to the mountain. In short, anyway, it's smashed now. Ye Harem looked at his wife and Ye Kong. The more he thought about it, the more he became arrogant, and he prepared for a long time. Now when he loses ground, he regards the two as the culprits, let alone the anger in his heart. Bang, Ye Harem slammed a punch on the sandalwood Baxian table, smashing a large hole in the table that was as strong as an iron urn. Ye Kong. Go to the Ye family ancestral hall to reflect on the ancestors. Do not change the bad temper and not be allowed to come out. Ye Harem then decided to punish him. Scolding, glaring at him, and hurried out. Ye Kong doesn't care what he thinks about, but what makes him uncomfortable is that the scriptures, Father, show the 5 elements to the Buddhist scriptures. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 15. Chapter 14 Ancestral Hall. The Ye family ancestral hall, in the middle of the inner courtyard, is an independent small courtyard. The large house in the middle is dedicated to the spiritual seat of the ancestors of the Ye family, and the back room of the big house is a showroom, hanging from those once glorious. The ancestors' portraits and deeds still have genealogy. Ye Kong was not in a hurry to go to the ancestral temple, because Ye Wei said to him, he could go home and say goodbye to Chen Juniang before thinking about it, and it was also a rule to think of his ancestors, and it should not be dirty, so every 5 days you can come out once, wash your hair, bathe and sleep well. Ye Wei said that he was locked in by his father many years ago. The hardest part was the night. It was horrible and there was no place to sleep. He had to kneel. In addition, he couldn't leave Yefu during his thoughts. Ye Kong is very indifferent to these. He has watched too many ghost movies. As long as he is not really a ghost, he is not afraid. As for being unable to leave the house, he did not intend to go out. The only thing that is depressing is that it would be nice if I could get that book of Xianxia. However, Ye Kong did not pay any attention to the book of Ye Wei Ti. He just showed too much attention to that book. If he continues to stare and ask, others will doubt it. At that time, the simplest question, how do you know these square characters? Then he couldn't answer. Read in the book. Which book? Take a look. Dreaming of it? This mother is too bullshit. Well, no matter what, go back and talk to the old lady individually and think about it. As long as the book is in Yes house, it will be easy to handle, and there is always a chance to get it. Ye Kong thanked his elder brother and quickly walked out of the inner courtyard and returned to the small courtyard where he lived, and found that there was an unexpected guest here. The visitor was MRS3. These wives never came here. Even if Chen Juniang was to do her work, she would send it to a mother-in-law. Why did the 3 ladies come here in person? Seeing Ye Kong return, the third wife naturally falsely boasted Ye Kong for a while. Chen Juniang was already flattered. How can you see that MRS-san is so kind and pleasant? The next words of MRS3 made Ye Kong understand her purpose. She came to disclose the news and said that if it wasn't for the second wife's previous block, Ye Kong would now have followed the immortal practice. This woman was dared to provoke him. Although Ye Kong hated the second wife very much, she did not want to be shot by the third wife. So Ye Kong told his mother to think about his ancestors, then took a few thicker clothes and left his courtyard. On the way to Ye family ancestral hall, Ye Kong found that the argument behind him changed again. Ah, do you know? Today the immortal came to Ye's house to accept the apprentice. He was selected for a long time. Only one person has the qualification of a fairy. Who? Good luck. Well. Ah, stupid. His mother is really lucky, but, why didn't he go with the fairy? Haha, you don't know. Although he has the qualifications, he is the most trashy qualification. He is so bad that he can't help laughing and is very shameful. That's right. Garbage is rubbish. He is a rubbish. He is shameful than people without qualifications. Haha, who said no? Now I've been punished by the ancestral temple. His fairy is stupid. Lao Tzu is going to pump your mouth sooner or later, Ye Kong cursed, turning back to sneer at the 2 ding, shaking his arms and walking away. When he came to the Ye family ancestral hall, Ye Kong found a strange phenomenon. I saw a lot of soldiers surrounded by the ancestral hall. The defensive look was serious. I didn't understand why the ancestral hall sent so many soldiers to guard. Unable to do spiritual work? Although Ye Kong was weird, he didn't ask. He walked by wearing his coat at night and was about to enter the door, just to see Ye Harem stepping out of it. What is he doing here? Come to me? See if I come. Ye Kong was in doubt for a while, hurried to one side and let the way out. Ye Harem was clearly angry, and walked in front of Ye Kong, snorted coldly before he left quickly. Didn't come to me, so what did he do? Ye Kong lowered his head, pondered, crossed the high threshold, and entered the heavily guarded ancestral hall. To say that this shrine is not the same as other rooms, it is shady in the daytime. After entering the house, there is a feeling of jumping into the cold water. Isn't it true that her mother has a ghost? Yehalo was groggy, and her heart was depressed. There were so many people outside, how could there be no one inside? If it was on the earth, Yekong would surely laugh 3 times, no ghost is afraid of a hare. But there are no ghosts in this Kangnan continent, it's really hard to say. He walked in lightly, and saw that the center of the ancestral hall was a circle surrounded by white marble railings, and the middle of the circle was also a white jade carved circle. What it described was similar to the Temple of Heaven in Beijing. There are railings on the outside, and a granary building in the middle. The difference is that in the middle of Beijing is the tall prayer hall, and the Ye family is a white jade carved tower, and there are countless ancestral tablets of different sizes. This Ye family really thrives with her mother Ding. Yekong was surprised to find that the spiritual tower was not the only one of the Ye family's ancestors. This spiritual tower only enshrines all the long houses of the Ye family, that is, the powerful people of the Ye family, or celebrities and officials from the Ye family. And the spiritual position of more Yejia branches is placed on the table next to the wall in the big house, and there are more of them. Looking at it in the same way, they are densely dotted with long bright lamps in the middle. The tall, solid walls, the eerie wind is flowing in the empty space, there is no one in sight, but the spirit of the dead is full. Even the bold King Yekong can't help being creepy and afraid to breathe loudly. Walk slowly on the heels. Yekong. Oh my God, a sudden sound from behind scared Yekong, looked back against the wall, and saw an old-fashioned old man standing at the gate of the ancestral hall. Oh, Sir Yekong found Zhang Wuid, and hurriedly greeted him. Sir came in and talked. No, Ye family ancestral hall, I'm not easy for an outsider to enter. Zhang Wuid still had the expressionless old face. Yang said, holding a few books in his hand, I heard that you want to face the wall and give you some books. Although Zhang Wuid was expressionless and his tone was as flat as ever, Yekong felt warm. Thank you, Sir. Yekong took the book, and found that it was mostly poetry, songs, and poems, with 2 books of strange things and strange things in between. Zhang Wuid looked at Yekong, his eyes slowly, and said, I just heard about you. Since you don't have a good spiritual root, then you don't need to think about immortals, you can learn poetry with peace of mind. Although Yekong didn't think so, he couldn't refute those who really cared about him and nodded. Probably to see Yekong's thoughts, Zhang Wuid suddenly waved his sleeves, reached out and touched Yekong's head, and sighed with a bowed head, Child, in fact, it's not a bad thing to be an immortal. Do you think that the mortal world is cruel and cruel? But in fact, among the cultivators, that's really cruel, killing people for treasure, killing people for fun, and destroying the other party in one sentence. These are all normal. Slowly you will become cruel and become relentless, for some so-called treasures, morality, shame, and even the lives of loved ones can be ignored. Sir does not want you to be such a person. Yekong felt Zhang Wuid's words very touching and looked up and asked, Sir, why are you so clear about the things between the immortalists? Are you also an immortal? Zhang Wuid shook his head. Even if I have a spiritual root, I won't follow this path. Obviously Zhang Wuid has a story, but there is nothing he can do without telling it. Yekong again said, Sir, no matter if I am a fairyland or a mortal world, or whether I will have some day in the future, but I will never give up my attachment to good and evil, and I will not compromise with any force and tempting. Zhang Wuid, who never had an expression on his face, smiled, and touched Yekong's head and smiled, Don't give up, don't compromise, take good, you are a good boy. Hey, buddy is not a child. After Zhang Wuid left, Yekong took the book and walked behind the ancestral hall, found a pavement, and placed it under the largest candle to pass the time. However, Yekong was really not interested in those poems, and finally turned up the spirit and physical history, which recorded many characteristics of spirit beasts and spirit grass. Of course, Yekong was purely fun, and he didn't expect much use. Because according to the book, these spirit beasts, the grasses, are extinct. As soon as the evening came, there were soldiers shouting to eat outside, but they still had to eat at the ancestral temple for introspection, and they ate with the soldiers. For the other masters, the meal here is called coarse tea light rice. Even better at home. Is this pork? Why is it so fragrant? It's still strong to eat, Yekong asked with a big bone. The leader of the army was a centurion named Lu Changqing with a smile. Master, master, you don't know about this. This is the meat of a tin-skinned cow. Don't look at the outside of the tin-skinned cow. The skin is like iron, inside. Don't mention how fragrant the meat is. Oh? The iron hide is very hard, isn't it? Yekong asked in surprise. That is, of course. This is the middle-class spirit beast, Lu Changqing said proudly again. If it weren't for me who happened to hit me this time from the camp, the big guys wouldn't have tasted it. On the Kangnan continent, there are also differences between beasts. Generally pigs and sheep belong to poultry and livestock, and only beasts, or spirit beasts, are divided into top, upper, middle, lower, no order. Between each stage, it is divided into top, middle, and bottom. Generally speaking, a stepless spirit beast refers to a spirit beast without cultivation. Just like humans, there is no spiritual root and no natural magic. But even without spells, these spirit beasts are also very powerful. Some are brute force, some are poisonous, and some are large. In short, this kind of spirit beast can be dealt with by ordinary people, but it is not easy to deal with. As for the spiritual beasts with orders, ordinary people can't deal with them, but the cultivators will be out. But that kind of spiritual beasts won't appear on the street, because they also practice and also need to fly up. Wisdom, you can be humanoid at the top. And this kind of iron-skinned cow belongs to the non-ordered middle-class spirit beast. It is not easy to think that the centurion can kill a non-ordered middle-class spirit beast. Yekong nodded and praised, General Liu's martial arts are superb, and we have enjoyed it. Lu Changqing was called a general by Yekong, and his heart was refreshing. At this moment, soldiers laughed and said, Master, master, don't listen to his bragging. The iron skin is very hard and big, but if he just met him, the heavily wounded iron hide cattle may not be enough to handle General Ye's departure. Lu Changqing's face blushed and angered, whether it is seriously injured or not, you can taste the taste of iron hide cows today, it's always because of me. The soldier didn't even bother him, and said, how many more brothers are injured? Yekong watched them arguing, and quickly advised, don't say that, no matter how General Lu can be considered to improve food for everyone, haha, General Lu don't be angry, that brother is also distressed, and the brother was injured. Everyone says a little less, drink, eat meat. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 16. Chapter 15 Jade Box. To say that Yekong, the eighth master, the family girl doesn't talk to him, but those soldiers who rotate regularly outside are not familiar with the situation and take him seriously. Everyone will not say a word when he speaks. Come drink. Yekong and Lu Changqing were sitting at a table. Lu Changqing watched Master Number 8 pouring wine on himself, saying that he didn't dare, quickly took over, and filled Yekong. Yekong laughed. I came to introspect my ancestors. How can I drink? Drink less, in fact, I shouldn't drink it. Lu Changqing held a small tile bowl, reluctant to drink dry, took a big sip. Then I'll accompany General Lu and drink a bowl. Yekong also took a sip and drank the wine from Kangnan mainland for the first time. The degree was not high, not too low, the taste was good, and it also had a green grassy fragrance. Good wine. Yekong lowered the bowl and asked again, Is this iron cow so powerful that it was seriously injured and several brothers were damaged before they caught it? Of course it is great, Lu Changqing said. This iron cow is as big as 3 or 4 ordinary cows, and the skin is even tougher than a steel gun, but it is terrible. Lu Changqing finished and sighed, but the skin, bones and horns are all good things. The skin can be used as armor, the bones can be used as medicine, and the horns can be used as weapons. The stepless Zongpan is so powerful. Ye Kong grinned and asked, why don't the country kill a little more iron cows, so that the brothers' armor is lighter and stronger? Lu Changqing laughed, you're talking layman. This iron-hide bull is a group when it appears, thousands of them. Don't look at it as only a middle-class spirit beast, a lot of it will be scary, even the ferry is afraid to. It was carried hard, and the tide was pouring down. You didn't use it when you came to hundreds of thousands of troops. It was dead when it came back and forth. Is it worth it for their skin? That's the way it is, Ye Kong suddenly realized, and then he was very embarrassed, as if suddenly remembering to ask, oh, what happened to my father this afternoon? Lu Changqing said happily that he didn't even think about it, and said, it seems to put something. Lu Changqing was also a clever person. When he said something, he suddenly felt something wrong, and he quickly said to Ye Kong, Master, do nt hurt me? What do you want to ask yourself? Ask the general. To be honest, I do nt know if the general went into the house to do it. Whatever you said, you did nt hear it? Do nt say it was a villain when you heard it? Oh, look at you nervously. I just asked casually, will I still hurt my father? Or foreign spy, Ye Kong said with a grin. Then Lu Changqing looked at Ye Kong and felt that he was overly vigilant. Although the 8 masters were punished by the general today, they are father and son, not to mention that General Ye is not a military secret. Said. In fact, the guard Ding was not allowed to enter the ancestral temple. Today, Lu Changqing happened to pass by the door. I saw Ye Hairan's back, saw him worshipped, and touched the jade box in the middle altar, and finally came out shaking the key. Lu Changqing easily guessed that Ye Hairan had put things in the box. Come and drink. Drink. They drank not much wine, but each had their own plans. Ye Kong heard Lu Changqing's words, and his heart was shocked. He had guessed that there was a reason for Dad to come to the ancestral hall. Otherwise, Ye Hairan was so angry at that time. Hearing Lu Changqing's words again, there was a flash of lightning in his brain. Pop, a book as white as jade appeared. Yes, it is possible, most likely, this book is an heirloom of Ye family. Ye Hairan is very likely to put it in the ancestral temple. If that is the case, it is really a destiny, just introspection and cultivation. Ye Kongli was overjoyed. He had no interest in eating and drinking after thinking about it. After chatting with Lu Changqing for a while, he hurried back to the ancestral hall and wanted to find Ye Hairan's possession. However, he is also a person with a careful mind. As soon as he entered the door, he thought, would this Lu Changqing report this matter to Ye Hairan? This guy must be Ye Hairan's confidant to be able to come to the gate of Ye's ancestral hall. It is normal to report the situation. So Ye Kong walked into the ancestral temple without rushing to find it. Instead, he lowered his head and sat directly on the futon. He read the book by candlelight, but his eyes narrowed at the entrance of the ancestral temple. Sure enough, not long after, I saw a dark shadow passing by the gate of the ancestral hall. It was Centurion Lu Changqing who came here. He had dinner and sat there. The more he thought about it, the more he became scared. In case the master really stole the general baby, then his crime would be even greater. So he sneaked into the door, observed the situation inside, and fortunately, Master 8 was reading a book there. It seemed that he was more attentive. Ye Kong pretended to be a book reader, and his heart was also stunned. It seemed that it was not harmful to be careful, and he was almost arrested. After waiting for a while, It seems that Lu Changqing has left, pretending to be sleepy, and then turns around again, still dare not act arrogantly, finally turned back again, put on his coat and crouched and fell asleep. The introspection in the ancestral temple is the heaviest punishment of the Ye family. They can't eat well, have nowhere to sleep, have no freedom, oh, and fear. If you can't stand another master, you can't bear it, but Ye Kong thought about that book. The scriptures are not afraid of any great torture, not to mention this sin. In the middle of the night, many of the candles in the ancestral hall had been extinguished. I don't know where the wind came from and it was cold outside. Ye Kong felt that he was still wearing less clothes. He knew it would be better to bring a bed quilt. His body was a bit cold, but his heart was warm. Almost. Look for. That jade box is not difficult to find, just below the central altar, but it is locked and cannot be opened, and the box and the base are connected by a whole jade, and it cannot be opened without unlocking. Smash the jade box. Ye Kong is not so upset with Ye Harem. Since it can only be unlocked by unlocking it, it is only by using the key that Ye Harem will not actively give him the key, but this cannot help but Ye Kong, although he is not a thief, but as a gangster on the street, he is often a thief. I know a little about twisting the door and the lock. Although this is not a buddy's strength, this ancient lock was easy to open. Ye Kong researched for one night and felt that he was still sure. He decided to find an opportunity to go out and get a little iron to unlock it. However, it was a bit inconvenient to want to go out. The next day, he knew when he wanted to leave. The soldiers also had the role of guarding him, forbidding him to leave the courtyard. Ye Kong had no choice but to sit in the ancestral hall for those spirit bit cards in a daze. It seemed that he had only waited 5 days to return home. But who knew that the opportunity came at noon? Ye Wei brought him to see him with a quilt, and said that it was Chen Juniang who brought him. The brothers started chatting to Zhang Weiyuan, and Ye Kong asked if there were any stories about the 5 virtues. Ye Wei haha smiled, took out an ear chop, and drew his ears, while saying, "This 5 virtue is a person from the neighboring country of Wu Kingdom. It is very famous in Wu Kingdom. He entered the court of Wu Kingdom at a young age. The emperor appreciated that their Zhang family was also a big family. The people were prosperous, but no one knows who offended his family. They were destroyed overnight. Zhang Weiyuan's wife and daughter were also killed that time. Ah, that's it Yekondeo. No wonder the old man was stubborn all day, daring to have this sad past. Yeah, the Zhang family was killed, and only Zhang Weiyuan escaped. It was miserable, Ye Wei said with sigh. Isn't the emperor appreciative of him? Why don't the emperor help him get revenge? Ye Kong asked again. Ye Wei shook his head. I don't know. I guess the emperor can't afford it. Ye Kong thought for a moment, and then guessed, the emperor can't afford it? It must be an immortal, no wonder he speaks like that. 8 brother is really smart. Ye Wei nodded and praised. However, we are guessing, Mr. Zhang himself does not say, who knows what is going on. Mr. must have escaped the hunt before coming to our country, being accepted by his father, and living an incognito life, right? Ye Kong continued to guess. But this time he guessed wrong. Ye Wei shook his head and smiled. You didn't guess right this time, Baba, but maybe most people have to guess like this, but you forget, people like Mr. Zhang Weiyuan, if they were really chased down by immortals, how could they come to other people's houses and bring disaster to others? Yes, that's right, Ye Kong nodded. After a short time, he still respected Zhang Weiyuan's morality. In fact, this is the case. I guess that the killing fairy family is just to vent their anger. Even killing the family is not a problem. Zhang Weiyuan has a good reputation among the people. The fairy people don't complain too much, and they let him go. The emperor did not take revenge on him, so he came to our country and happened to meet his father. This is where we lived. Ye Kong nodded and said, brother's reasoning ability is much stronger than mine. Ye Wei laughed, I'm the stupidest everywhere. Then he shook his head and sighed, in fact, Mr. Zhang is also very bitter. Ye Kong also flattened his mouth and nodded, if I have the chance, I have to help Mr. Shui with revenge. Ye Wei was startled by him. He almost poked his ears into his ears and hurriedly said, Paper brother, don't mess around. Fairies are not what we can afford. Don't look at Ye's family. But that's not enough for Xianxia people. Ye Kong smiled, relax, brother, I'm not stupid. On the contrary, I'm still very smooth. To whom, what should I say, I am very clear. Ye Wei said, fearing that when you get excited, that's not the case. After chatting for a while, Ye Wei was about to leave, and said, I'm going back to the barracks. I can't leave there for a long time, take good care of myself. Pat Ye Kong's shoulder, I'm gone. This elder brother felt Ye Kong really feel like a brother. Ye Kong nodded with a smile, watching Ye Wei leave, and watching him go all the way, then suddenly remembered something. Hey, brother, wait, my ears also itch. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 17. Chapter 16. 1 year. Opening the jade box, a thin white book like white jade lay quietly. On the title page, several familiar Chinese characters in the 5 elements ascending the Immortal Sutra came out with that kind of intimacy. Holding this heavy and bleak book, Ye Kong was also very excited. He knew that this book was like a key and would open the door to the fairyland for him. Take out the scriptures, cover the jade box, and lock the lock intact. Ye Kong looked back again, grinned, excitedly and returned to the PU pad in the corner of the ancestral hall. In order to prevent others from seeing anything, Ye Kong sandwiched the 5 elements ascension scriptures in the Foreigner's Chronicles, just like reading novels in class when he was in school. Pick at your fingertips, and lightly open the pages. Ye Kong has never read a book in such a sleepless way. He has been reading it since the afternoon. He ate a few bites of rice with the soldiers at night and came back to read it again. Finally, he put down the book and closed his eyes and meditated. According to the folks of the earth who call themselves Wuxing Sanren, the traversers from the earth should be willing roots. According to the concept of Kangnan continent, this is the worst qualification, but Wuxing Sanren does not agree with this view. He believes that Wulingan is actually the most stable and natural spiritual root. Imagine that the world is composed of golden wood, water, fire, and soil, and the human body is also a small universe. It cannot be separated from golden wood, water, fire, and soil. The other spiritual roots are powerful. This view of Wuxing Sanren can be said to be contrary to the popular view in the Kangnan continent. According to him, isn't Tianligan the worst and most unstable qualification? However, Ye Kong felt some truth. The world is originally composed of these 5 basic elements. Of course, it's more powerful to cultivate together than to cultivate one, and these 5 elements are mutually reinforcing each other. If you confront the enemy in the future, you can use whatever you want. The element that defeated the opponent. For example, if the other party has the fire attribute of cultivation, let's come to the water attribute, and the water will overcome the fire. If the other party has the water attribute, then we will come to the soil attribute, and the soil will defeat the water. Ye Kong feels that this old man is really a personal talent. If he absolutely cannot create the exercises himself, this 5 elements ascension is the practice of Wuxing Sanren himself based on Wulingan qualifications. According to the Wuxing Sanren, the advantages of this method are its great power, strong sense, and the amount of aura in its body is several times higher than that of the immortal practitioners in the same period. The second advantage is that the bottleneck of this method is not too serious. It may be because Wulingan is relatively stable, or because the foundation of this practice method is firm. In short, Every bottleneck that plagues other exercises is not a headache in the 5 Elements Ascension Classic. The 5 elements are real people, and it can be said that no matter whether the foundation or the baby is born, as long as a single elixir can guarantee your success at one time, there will never be a situation where you can't build the foundation after eating 7 or 8 of the bases. Some people have to ask, since this exercise method is tailor-made for Wollingen, and it also solves the big problem of bottlenecks, Yekong will hurry to practice it? What is the time delay? The key problem is that this method is also flawed. First of all, slow cultivation, Wai Tian Lingen is good, that is, fast cultivation, twice the effort, half the time, and the 5 Elements Ascension Sutra exacerbates the characteristics of Wu Lingen slow cultivation, slower and slower, slower than you can imagine. Of course it is because of the slow cultivation that we can lay a solid foundation and weaken the bottleneck. It is also because of the long cultivation that the power can far surpass that of the immortals in the same period. Disadvantage 2, metallic aura is scarce. According to the Wuxing Sanren, these 5 elements of Ascension Sutra are to absorb the 5 elements of aura in heaven and earth to achieve balance and stability. The aura of 5 attributes cooperates with each other and checks and balances. Therefore, after the foundation is established, the 5 elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and soil must be guaranteed the average in the body. Others are easy to say. The most annoying thing is that there is no metallic aura in the air, and there is no ordinary place. Wuxing Sanren gave a suggestion to the aura inside the metallic spirit stone. Yekong smiled bitterly. He hasn't seen what the spirit stone looks like until now. How much spirit stone does it take if he absorbs metal spirit stones? It must be an astronomical figure. The Wuxing Sanren also knew that it was really laborious to make so many metallic spirit stones, and he gave a second suggestion, refining the veins of a metallic spirit stone mine, and then there was a steady stream of metallic spirits. Yekong even shook his head. You dug the veins of other people's spiritual stone mines and cut off other people's wealth. Is NT that your own death? Might as well find a way to make a spiritual stone. Practice or not. The advantage is that it is powerful and has no bottlenecks. The disadvantage is that it is slow and has many flowers and stones. Yekong looked down and pondered. However, he quickly made a decision: exercise. Is there any other choice now? According to Wan Xianzheng, my qualifications will stop at the early stage of gas refinement. The 5 elements and the Immortal Sutra guarantee that I have successfully established the foundation. Slower, slower. Since Yekong had made a decision, he would not delay any more. He sat cross-legged immediately and meditated on the practice method again. Then he stuffed the book into his inner bag, closed his eyes, put his palms flat, and started practicing. The realm of the immortal is divided into upper, middle, and lower. The lower realm is 5 realms such as gas refining, building base, Jindan, Yuanying, and Huashan. The middle realm is 3 realms of refining, combining, and Mahayana realm. Then there is only the last one to cross the calamity. If you successfully pass the sky calamity, you can fly to the immortal realm and live with heaven and earth. It should also be explained that in each realm, it is divided into 10 layers. The first, second, and third floors are called the early stage, the fourth and fifth floors are called the middle stage, and the seventh and eighth floors are the later stages. Yekong doesn't want too much at this moment. At present, he can only work towards the first goal. It is like a marathon runner who runs a long distance for thousands of miles and finally takes the first step. He doesn't know what the future will have. He only knew that since he had been on this road, he had to bury his head, grit his teeth, and rush forward, never turning back. Cultivation is not the same as meditation, but it is also related. The last time Yekong practiced indiscriminately, it took 9 cattle and 2 tigers to enter the state of settling, but today is different. He can feel the aura in the air converging towards himself as soon as he starts practicing. The feeling of cold disappeared for a moment, as if wrapped in the warm water, very comfortable, and he soon entered the state of being settled. It is incredible that the part that started to the aura into the body first, turned out to be the palm. Yekong thought it was breathing, sucking in aura, and then his limbs and bones moved. But who knew it was the palm? However, it is normal to think about it. The palm is an extremely sharp and flexible organ. The palm is the most dense appointment of the human body. In the future, there will be Xianli to be sent from the palm. Yekong clearly felt that the strands of water and wood attributes aura penetrated from the palm of his hand. He felt that the flesh of his palms had become a sieve, covered with countless fine and neat eyes, and then he looked like a stream of water from his small eyes. It flows into the body and is slowly transported into the body from the meridians of the arm. Fortunately, the first state of cultivation does not require the balance of inhaling Reiki. As long as it is Reiki, Yekong seems to be a greedy baby, constantly trying to absorb Reiki from the air. However, this Reiki is not stored in Ki as much as it is inhaled. In fact, Reiki enters the body. With the Kaijing 8 veins running for 8 days, the amount of Reiki that finally falls into Ki is very small. Part of the aura is used to nourish all parts of his body and the meridians. Another part escapes from the inside of the body through the skin, and another part is impurities. These impurities stay in the muscles of the body and are slowly pushed out of the body with cultivation. After a long period of meditation retreat, many cultivators will leave a circle of black-gray dust around them. The black ones are bad substances inside the human body, while the gray ones are impurities doped in the aura. So in the later period, the dust discharged from the body of the immortal is only gray and not black. Yekong didn't dare to slack off, and after a whole night of cultivation, he felt that there was a faint aura of qi in the sea. This has made Yekong overjoyed. He knows that he has stepped into the door one step, and he can be regarded as an immortal, but this level is still very low. Harem can still slap him with a slap. However, after entering the door, is the improvement of capabilities still far away? What makes Yekong even more happy is that his spirit is much better. It seems that absorbing the aura is good for the soul. It won't take long for the damaged soul to recover as before. After the soul has grown, it is not a dream to open the encyclopedia of spells. I don't know what surprise the spell book brought by the earth will bring to myself. Master 8, have breakfast. Thinking of Lu Changqing's shouting outside. Hey, here it is. Yekong patted his clothes and walked out the door. Master 8, you sat all night last night. Isn't this leg numb? Lu Changqing handed his head over breakfast and asked. Low-key, still low-key. People's eyes are poisonous. As soon as this happens, others see it. Hemp, why not? But there is no bed, and I can only meditate and sleep. Yekong sighed and laughed. General Lu, should we change it? Haha. Lu Changqing laughed. I feel bad for Master 8. I want Master 8 to sleep more comfortably, but in case the general knows it, the little one can't eat it. From then on, Yekong transferred the puppet to the back of the ancestral shrine. It is better to be cautious in everything, but Lu Changqing is not bad, and he has a naughty heart. Yekong is also very happy. Every day passed, and in a blink of an eye, Yekong had introspected the Ye family ancestors for a year. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 18. Chapter 17. It was another sunny morning. There was no cloud in the cyan sky. Under the sky, there was a busy scene in the southern capital. Many people gathered at the gate of the city, and the person who looked like a scholar before the list was shaking his head and reading the notice. Many people dressed as folk husbands were surrounded by the side, and the buzzing noise was endless. Why are you recruiting? Are you going to fight again? I haven't heard of it. You don't understand. This is the preparation of the whole army. When you really fight, and then recruit soldiers, it will be 8 lives late. It turned out to be so prepared. This soldier can be a vain, live in vain, save money, and not have to go to the battlefield. The old man went back and asked my son to sign up. Cut. Yejiajin runs the army rigorously. The military law is very strict. Even if it is not on the battlefield, that training is enough for you to eat a pot. Then let them go to the army. The second child ma next door has a son Yejun, watch him blow, hum. As I was talking, there was a ringing horse bell ringing in the distance. I looked up and saw a cyclist embroidered with the word post on his clothes. He ran fast on a yellow horse. Cycling horses splashed a line of flying lois. The horse was galloping and the wind was relaxing, but the rider still felt slow, and the raised whip threw a loud whip flower in the air. Pop, the crisp whip made the huang mao hiss, and rushed towards the gate more hard. "Andu urgent documents," the rider roared from a distance, scaring the people who were blocked at the door trying to enter the city, and even backed away, and even the goalkeeper rushed out of a passage. Yu Huang Yuma hissed, he passed through the city gate in a blink of an eye, and brought a gust of wind full of lois. At that fast speed, passers-by did not even see the rider's face, leaving only more and more to go far crisp horseshoe. Yefa Flower Hall. Yeharan sat calmly in the middle of the lobby, bowed down with fragrant tea, a small celadone tea bowl, and small sprouts before the rain. Drinking it in one sip, the heart-pleasing fragrance seldom rose. Good tea, Yeharan put down the tea bowl and sighed, a cup of tea, two turbid wine, how long can it be calm in this comfortable day? Sighing, the old Xingyi servant rushed into the blaze outside. It was the housekeeper Yesiai. "General, there is an urgent post from Andu." "Come on." "Come in," Yeharan frowned, but frowned again. After a while, the dusty rider walked in and saw Yeharan, immediately kneeling on one knee, holding up a wax-sealed paper bag, loudly, "See General Genese. Andu Fang Shilang urgent letter." "Well, you've worked hard." Yeharan took a sip of tea before he got up to take the letter and motioned the rider to get up and talk. "Does Fang Shilang have a message asking you to take me?" Yeharan asked without breaking the letter. "General Chen Genese." "No," the rider knelt back on one knee again. "Oh." Yeharan did not respond, raising his hand to signal Yesiai to take someone down to receive the reward. When Yesiai took the postman away, Yeharan stepped back to the study, opened the letter, watched it with his eyes closed, snorted, and walked back and forth dozens of times in the study. Then Yeharan's majestic voice sounded in the study, "Yesiai. Get ready, I will leave for Andu in the afternoon, and call a sergeant Ye family." Yes, old slaves do it now. Although Yesiai felt that Yeharan had been in a hurry to Beijing this time, as an old housekeeper, he still knew the rules. "The owner didn't want to let you know. However, it's still worth noting to inform Mrser." The second wife hurried to the study room. Yeharan was handing a letter to Ye family relatives. "Call Yewei and ask him to collect it," Yeharan said. Yes, the relatives put the letters on the meat, turned around, and quickly walked out of the study. The second wife hurried up and asked, "General, why is it so anxious to go this time? Is there something wrong with the capital?" Yeharan smiled and said, "Don't worry too, that is, Your Majesty scolded me at the North Korean Assembly twice and let the barbarians develop." "The second wife is also from the government," she groaned. "Why didn't Your Majesty make you ruthless, but scold you in the court?" Yeharan sneered, "He is here to show his position to the civil and military officials. Then you send troops to wipe out that Khan." Yeharan smiled indifferently. "The day when the barbarians were destroyed, it was the day when my Ye family began to break down." The second wife was taken aback and asked, "Well, aren't you going to the south this time?" Yeharan laughed, "Relax, as long as the barbarians do not die, my Ye family will be safe, big and small. This time I want to let the emperor be assured of me. I will bring more gold and silver, and do some work up and down." After Yeharan said, he also commanded, "In order to reassure the emperor, I may live longer, and the house will be left to you. Usually, do NT cause trouble outside the house. The house also has to have a good relationship with the houses. You fight for me. Fighting makes outsiders laugh. Know your body. The second wife's legs were slightly bent and she saluted. This action showed her still rounded hips. Although these two ladies were not young, they were well maintained, but Harem couldn't help it. Reached out and squeezed. General is about to go on the road, but also to make a bed. Oh, my husband and wife, what's so easy to touch, it's too much to say, can't touch the front, The second wife was unhappy, but happy in her heart. The old lady is not worse than those little sow hoofs, but also can catch generals, wave hoofs, and other generals. Go and see how I straighten you. And that ugly woman, I remember. Harem's salty pig hands have not been in chaos for a long time, because the other rooms have also received news. The sons and daughters have come to say goodbye, and there are many people. Harem returns to the flower hall to say goodbye to everyone. Separate husband and wife, many little women were jealous and wept, seeing the second wife's heart annoyed. Wave hoof, you perform hard, wait for Harem to leave, let you know how powerful I am. Of course, Harem didn't know. He was still comforting a few young concubines who had just received a house, and then urged some sons. It seemed that the hall was full of fathers and filial piety. No one has mentioned it. There is a young master in the family who has been meditating for over a year. Perhaps everyone has forgotten that the fool and the ugly woman were originally forgotten corners, not to mention that for more than a year, the fool has completely disappeared. Of course, some people remember, like MRSER or YesCai, but they would remind Harem? Of course not. They wished Yekong had better face-to-face, and died in the ancestral temple. At noon, a figure in a grey coat was walking fast in the inner courtyard of Yes house. The old man was old, but walked in a hurry, making people worry that he would fall at any time. This is Mr. Zhang Wuid of the academy. He only heard that Harem was going to Beijing when he had lunch, so he put down half of his meal and hurried out. The general has gone out and just left. Oh, Zhang Wuid softened his calf, turned and ran outside. Sir, are you okay? Slow down. Anise yelled twice, wondering, Mr. Zhang always reprimands others to stand and sit, why is he so decent today? The general stayed away. Zhang Wuid ran very unsightly. He was a bit shy and didn't run very often. His legs were still half-curved when he ran. However, the situation was urgent and he could not care about Sven. He couldn't watch Yekong for another year. Fortunately, after catching up, Harem just got on the horse and waved to the farewell crowd, and saw Zhang Wuid burst out of the crowd, panting on the last carriage. Sir, why are you so anxious? Harem hurried down to help Zhang Wuid. General, you forgot one thing, Master 8, is still in the ancestral shrine, now, more than a year. Harem listened, and his body shook. Yes, there is another 8 son. Since that failed in worship, he has forgotten that he still has a son. Thinking about it. It has been more than a year in a blink of an eye. The longest punishment in the past was to introspect the ancestors for a month, but Yekong has been staying for more than a year. Oh my God, it was cold and scary there, and there were no beds. He was and stayed there for a year. Well, my father's negligence. Harem couldn't help but sigh, and then said to Zhang Wuid, Mister, let him come out, I can't say goodbye to him, and let him come out. Less trouble and read more, fight with your brothers, everything is working, Mr. Lo. In the afternoon, an energetic teenager emerged from the family ancestral hall. He was a lot taller than a year ago, and when he walked in there was his glory, movement, and self-confidence. After a year of practice, his chi has already condensed a lot of Reiki. Those Reikis are like a cloud of 7 colors. His body cannot be seen from the outside, but his thinking, muscles, and skeleton have been nourished far more than ordinary people. His eyes are clear, his eyesight is excellent, his movements are agile, and his response is very fast. Even his memory has improved a lot. The writing and poetry of the Kangnan continent can't help him. As for the use of force, with a substantial improvement, even if he never practiced martial arts, Centurion Lu Changqing is no longer his opponent. Master 8, don't come in anymore. For the past year, Yekong, Lu Changqing, and the soldiers have good feelings. Yekong laughed, look at what you said, I want to come in whenever this Ye family ancestral hall comes in, and it's not prison. Lu Changqing realized that he was guilty, and smiled embarrassedly, haha, I mean don't come in and reflect on your ancestors in the future. Yekong patted him with a smile, in fact, I would like to stay here for a long time. In fact, Yekong's words are sincere. Since he practiced, he has gone back less often, and no one has bothered to stay here. Apart from eating, he is the best place to practice. However, Yekong has never wanted to go out for another reason, that is, the Five Elements Ascension Sutra is still on him. If Harem is to come to the ancestral temple to check the treasure books, he also has the opportunity to put them back in advance. And now, he doesn't have to worry about it. Harem won't return shortly after going out, and he can also bring the treasure book out safely. There is another reason for him to leave the ancestral shrine, that is, his knowledge is enough to open the curse book in the Lingtai. This is a great good news for Yekong. He now has a cultivation practice. If he is equipped with various powerful spells, he should not be afraid of encountering the immortal. Lao Lu, don't give it away, I will come back to play when I have time. Yekong now also has a lot of nicknames for Lu Changqing. Hello, I'll wait for you to come back for a drink. Yekong nodded, shook his big shirt and walked to his own courtyard, his mouth humming, only me is the most swaying, no one is more handsome than me. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 19. Chapter 18. Rune Paper. Mother, Yekong walked to the door of his small courtyard, and felt a warm heart. He did not expect to experience the warmth of the family in another world. When he did NT-cross before, he often watched the parents of other people's children love him so much. Now there are mothers too. Although ugly, Yekong believes that he will have a way to make the black scar on his mother's face disappear. This is Yekong's biggest wish. Chen Juniang didn't hear the shouting outside. She was busy embroidering. The second wife was very urgent. She didn't dare to delay. Yekong hadn't returned for more than half a month. She didn't expect Yekong to return today. Mother. I'm back. Yekong opened the door and shouted with a smile. Yeah, Chen Juniang heard her son's voice, turned her head in surprise, and smiled, hurry up and take a bath to change clothes, sleep well, and go to suffer tomorrow. Yekong laughed and dragged a bench to sit and said, there is good news, bad news, which one should you listen to first? Chen Juniang laughed and still started to work, saying, let's listen to the good news first, my mother is afraid to hear the bad news. Yekong said, okay, the good news is, I've been liberated. I don't have to see the ancestors' spirit again. Really, when Chen Juniang looked up, she was also very excited. She didn't know that Yekong didn't care about the coldness in the ancestral temple, and she was always worried that her son might have a problem in it. Now I heard that I don't need to go, of course I am happy. What about the bad news? Chen Juniang was just happy, and her brows frowned again. Shouldn't this kid be in trouble once she came out? But fortunately, not what she thought. Yekong said, the bad news is that you have to bleed. The son is going to buy something good and bring silver. Look at what you said, Juniang Chen whispered, patted in Yekong's palms, and said, you can buy as much silver as you want. Yekong received the silver from Harem. He did not ask a martial artist. All of them existed in Chen Juniang. He has also accumulated nearly 200 silvers in more than a year, and he is not a small sum in the Kangnan continent. Chen Juniang also counted on leaving Yekong to marry a daughter-in-law. Well, by yellow paper, Dancha should not use much silver. Yekong has been in Kangnan mainland for more than a year and has not yet crossed the street. Of course, I don't know the price. Think about it again, otherwise, my mother will go with me. It's been a long time since you went out. Ah. Go out, Chen Juniang frowned, lowered her head and said, hurry up, how much money do you want, you just said. Yekong didn't notice her expression, and yelled, who's going to work? It's good to give them white embroidery. When Laozi came to work for them. This is the rogue look all day long. Chen Juniang sneered with a smile and said, looking down, in fact, my mother, does not like to go out. Yekong immediately understood, looking at the old mother with her head down and inferior, solemnly said, Mother, rest assured, sooner or later, I will have a way to heal your face, isn't it melanin deposits? The son will soon become a doctor. How does Chen Juniang know what melanin deposits? She only knows that the black scars on her face are not good. At that time, the best man in the southern capital said that there was no rule of law, and his son was comforting himself. Okay, my mother is waiting for you to rule. Although she knew her son was comforting herself, Chen Juniang still appeared very happy. She is really happy, although her face will not be better, but the son is more genius than a year ago, and it still hurts people. Is there any reason not to be happy? Relax, there will be a way. Yekong nodded. In fact, he didn't brag, he really was about to become a divine doctor. To be precise, it was a charm doctor. If you want to say exactly, that is to say the Daquan, this book hidden in his soul, opened it, but only half of it. This spell book is divided into two types, amulet and paper amulet. The so-called amulet is the amulet that needs to be painted by aura to cast powerful and possessing aura. The amulet is much worse. It has no aura and does not have many functions. The yellow amulet can also be used on the earth. Yekong's current consciousness is not strong enough to read magical charms, and the pages of books he is opening now are all paper characters, and these paper characters are all for healing or exorcism. There are magical charms, bright eye charms, clear heart charms and so on. They are not very useful for Yekong at the moment, and he doesn't want to be a doctor. What he really looks forward to is that he can use magic charms in the future and send out powerful ones for combat. Kill a lot, that kind of magic. Of course, there are no such charms in the spell book behind him, he is not sure, but he is full of confidence. Although he didn't want to be a doctor, after all, now that he had seen a lot of paper symbols, he still wanted to draw a few to experiment, so he rushed out to buy the materials of the symbol. Come back early. Chen Juniang gave him 22 pieces of silver, and did not forget to say a few words, don't get out of trouble when you go out, and don't dangle while walking, keep your arms closed, just like a rogue. Mother, you are wrong, not a rogue, but a hooligan. A hooligan is the sum of a gangster, a rogue, a gangster, and a disciple. Yekong put the silver in his sleeve and walked out with a smile. Chen Juniang muttered angrily, anyway, it's not a good person. Then she lowered her head and was busy embroidering. Good guy. Good guy can't even get out of the gate, Yekong muttered and came to the doorway. It was the old man Li who was hit by him in the gatehouse today. Master 8, where are you going? Lao Si nodded greedily. Yekong is funny, this person is just going to be more powerful. If you are kind to him, he will treat you as if you have no temper, and he will treat you like an ancestor. I'll go out and buy something. Yekong didn't look at him at all. When the master goes out, he will take care of him. The children of the Ye family will be careful and do not cause trouble. Usually. I'll go out and buy something. Yekong raised his voice this time, and two eyes stared sharply at the fourth son of Li. The 8 masters, you walk slowly. The fourth old man was startled by him, thinking that these 8 masters are more powerful than a year ago. This kind of wicked man is hiding, and the brick is ruthless. Stepping out of the gate of Yefu, Yekong stood in the sun and looked back at the gate of Yefu. I saw the high gate plaque, the majesty of Shishi, the large stone steps, the simple and magnificent momentum, and several Yeji Ajunarlangs hung in front of the door. Pu Dao, who is so aggressive, is the most prominent and powerful character of Zhenyi's general mansion, which was actually mentioned by the emperor in Rushan. Yefu is good, but it is not the place where Yekong has stayed for a long time. Yekong Li had given birth to a long time ago, and folded his blue shirt front, walking towards the prosperous street. For the first time walking on the streets of the Kangnan mainland, Yekong felt particularly novel, as if he was walking into the city with a countryman. Looking left and right, anything could arouse his interest. Hey, there are shops specializing in tinkering with broken bowls. There are so many people there. They are fighting crickets, not crickets. They look fierce and look like mantises. Yekong walked through the bustling commercial district. There were fresh things everywhere. For example, there are also sugar men and noodles, but the pinched images are all three-headed, six-armed monsters with various weapons in their hands. The most different from the ancient cities on the earth is that in the middle of the crossroads of each bustling street, there is a square platform made of blue bricks, about 1 meter high and square. This is not a traffic police station. This is a ring platform. The Kangnan continent places heavy emphasis on martial arts, and the southern part of the country is close to the barbarians. The people here are more accustomed to martial arts. The folk customs are not ordinary and sturdy. After a few words, I can't help but study them. But you can't always fight on the street, hurting innocent people? What happened to the shop? Therefore, at the crossroads there were daisies, private ones, but they had to get official approval. Those who want to learn, go up and hit 50 copper plates. 100 copper plates in the Kangnan continent is 1 or 2 silvers. 50 copper plates are not cheap, but in case of death, the owner will have to bury it. If it hurts, there are special medicines for internal and external use, so it is not counted. Expensive. Yekong just saw an intersection, and a pair of strong men with big and strong arms were about to test. Yekong was not in a hurry. He didn't need money anyway, so he hugged his arms and watched in the crowd. Under is Yuntai Mountain Lufei, let my brother look at my deciduous palm in Yuntai. The other also clenched his fist, in Xia Kingman's son Sanli, I'll show you the light work of King Yi Menwan Lifei. Next, the two guys fought together. One was dominated by the breeze, while the other was known for his agile movements. This is the first time Yekong has watched the Kangnan mainland people's competition, and he has also been able to see the gods for a while. Since he practiced the 5 elements ascension of the Immortal Sutra, his eyes are sharp and his memory is beyond words. The essence of their respective boxing skills. Practice is the best study. In the future, I don't have to ask a martial arts teacher to teach me. If I have time, I will take a look at it. Stealing a teacher or two, with my reactions and actions, it should be enough to deal with some mortals. Yekong's idea determined, seeing that there was no victory on the ring, he did not watch, crowding out the crowd. Yekong didn't notice, he squeezed out of the crowd, and a tall and bald head came out. The bald head looked at Yekong's back, and immediately had tall, short, fat, and thin figures. People followed. A few steps away, it was a calligraphy and painting shop. Yekong nodded, folded his shirt front, crossed the threshold, and walked into the shop. Do you want to buy books or paintings? We have the latest stereotypes, as well as the paintings of the famous Tang Bonio. A thin and dry shop owner in his 20s welcomed him. Well, I'll take a look first. Yekong didn't know if the world had yellow mount paper for sale, so he ignored the shopkeeper and looked around. The thin shop owner was very enthusiastic. Gongzi, we still have good Huangzhou pens, Bitations Yantai, and the prices are fair. Yekong continued to wave his hand. I don't buy a pen and don't knock down the platform. The owner of Megan suddenly understood something, smiled sensually, dragged Yekong to the corner of the shop, and pulled out a thin stack of books from his sleeve. "My son, the latest version of the Spring Palace Awards, each of the 20 copper plates. The book is exciting, and it is absolutely worth the money. What beautiful paintings you see, and attractive pictures." Yekong was about to faint. Hey, buddy is only 13 years old this year. Do you know that this is poisoning the minor? What does it matter when I'm 13? I started watching when I was 10. The cheapest one is 15 copper plates. How about making friends at the cost price? But it's too rough for you, it's still black and white. If there is a Playboy, you can consider it. Yekong turned it around casually. The owner of Megan seemed to like this book in particular, and immediately asked, "Playboy? Is it better than this? Boy, why don't we communicate? Okay, let's talk about business. Is there a yellow paper on the cover of this Spring Palace book?" Yekong muttered, "No wonder the book is yellow, and the cover of the cover is yellow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 20. Chapter 19. Xianxia. Yellow paper was not expensive. I bought 3 large pieces of 50 copper plates and cut them on behalf of the customer. Yekong asked to cut a 2-inch wide by 5-inch long note. The owner didn't ask why, and he cut it anyway. Within a short while, 110 narrow yellow slips were delivered to Yekong, paid for it, and snatched another Spring Palace album from the owner. "Buy one, get one free." Yekong flipped the book away. Yellow paper is easy to buy, but cinnabar is not so easy to buy. In fact, Dancel is a solid sulfide mercury in technical terms, and the main component is mercury. There is no chemical store in the Kangnan mainland. It is estimated that there are only pharmacies to buy this stuff. Not to mention, pharmacies do sell, but because Xianxia is rarely used by people, Yekong ran several pharmacies, all of which were out of stock. Finally, under the guidance of others, he came to the most prosperous Tongchun Hall in the middle of the city. "Here is Tongchuntang," hoping to buy tan sand. Yekong stood muttering under the plaque of the Golden Gate of Tongchuntang and went up the stairs. In the end, it is the largest pharmacy in the southern capital. The lobby is very wide. People who buy medicine are also coming and going. A few people around the corner of the consultation desk are not sure what they are arguing about. Yekong turned around and looked at the gate, and walked straight to the counter where the medicine was sold. "Is there any tan sand for sale here?" Yekong asked the man inside. "Ah, Xianxia. It seems, you and so on." The man heard Xianxia felt a little strange, and hurried to ask the shopkeeper in the lobby. "Xianxia has it, 1 or 2 silvers and 1 money," the middle-aged shopkeeper replied, looking at Yekong in the coat and looking after his buddy. "There are some things in the storeroom, it's hard to find. Let him give money first." After practicing the 5 elements and immortal sutras, Yekong heard his ears clearly, heard the shopkeeper's words clearly, and knew that others were afraid that they could not afford them, so he simply took out 12 silver. "Give me a bag or 2." Yekong put down the silver. "Hello," the man dragged Changji in to accept the silver, and said politely, "Expert, there is a rest bench over there, please rest, and I'll find it for you in the warehouse." Yekong nodded, walked to the rest place next to him, sat down and closed his eyes and waited. Yekong's eyes were closed, and his ears became sharper. Not only could he hear everyone talking in the lobby, but who was there, what he said, and who the other party was, all clear. "This immortal is really amazing," Yekong Glee praised, and it was so keen to practice the first layer of 5 senses. It seems that it will not be difficult to hear thousands of miles in the future. "Hey, please help me, my mother will be blind again if she is dead." Don't go, you need to see a doctor and get money. This is a drug hall, not a charity hall. Hey, the doctor, can we brother Lu family beg you? No. Why? You still have to slap the ground? You are scumbags, and you know that when you ask us, you won't go if you don't, and you won't cure the silver. When Yekong heard this, he opened his eyes and looked at the disputed medical station. There were doctors in the big pharmacy, and he looked at the medicine with little pain. He opened his eyes to pay attention because he heard that the rogue was rogue, and he wanted to see what happened to his colleagues in the Kangnan continent. However, the rogues in these two places are worse than the hooligans of the earth. Although they are tall and strong, they are dressed shabby, short-sleeved coarse clothes, and a small twine tied around their waists, just like farmers. The doctors in the two places were rejected by the doctor, and they were also anxious. The older man who looked at him stared but couldn't do anything. He breathed a sigh of relief and pleaded, "Hey, the doctor, the master doesn't care about the villain. The last time he helped us come to Tong Chuntang to collect the moon money. Then you go to Dragon Snake to find someone to see a doctor." The cold doctor interrupted coldly and hummed again, "Don't try to cause trouble, we have already paid the monthly money, you can't make trouble with us, otherwise you the Lord will not spare you." Yekong listened and closed his eyes. He dared to come here to collect the protection fee before offending the other pharmacy. Now he doesn't spend money to ask a doctor to treat the disease. Of course, the doctor took this opportunity to take revenge. Of course he doesn't plan to control it, and he has no money. He can't help because he is a colleague from a different world. The landlord is more rogue. Who tells you to be polite when you charge for protection? When I was in Hansheng Street, I would take special care of the clinic in the film. No one can have a minor injury or pain. But Yekong just closed his eyes and listened to the sound of that place, saying, "Hey, healer, let us do this. We have a treasure in our family, which is the heirloom of our Lu family. If you help my mother to heal, I will let you see it once." The doctor said, "Ha," laughed, "I heard that precious gem in your house, isn't it the moonlight that has a vaguely villain dancing in it? Is there anything good? Look at it once every $12. Don't spend $12 on a girl watching a night." After the divine doctor said, everyone around him also laughed. Someone said, "Kangnan has a lot of years. Many people have any family treasures. The last look is rubbish. You can see the martial arts in the dancing villain, but why aren't your brothers masters?" When Yekong heard this, he took notice, and indeed, the Kangnan continent has been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years. Many people have treasures. There is no shortage of useless things, but there is no guarantee that there will be real treasures. You do NTC Ming Tang, does NT it mean buddies do NT? Isn't Yeji Abayo's book regarded as garbage by immortals? The brothers of the Lu family pleaded again, but they offended the doctor very much, and the doctor just ignored it, and they had no choice but to bow their heads and leave. "Brother Lu, please stay away." A teenager in a rough gown stood in front of them. "Whose unlucky child? Nothing to do with you, get off." Sure enough, no matter what the world, this hooligan is a hooligan, and his tone of speech is almost the same. Yekong wasn't bothered, and smiled, "Rita is immortal. Kindly treat it as donkey liver and lungs. Since you don't need my help, let it be." When the brothers of the Lu family wanted to help, the older one quickly came to apologize and said, "Son, here is the lower brother Lu, just now it is the second brother Lu Yi. The mother at home is seriously ill." Yekong nodded and said directly, "I have more than 9 or 2 pieces of silver. I can barely borrow you in a hurry, but I want to see your family's precious jade." The psychiatrist said that it would take 12 or 2 to see a doctor, but in fact, it was also estimated, and 9 or 2 would be a lot. Lu Jun was very happy, and quickly thanked a big wife. The surrounding spectators were noisy. "Little boy, brothers of the Lu family are all rogues, so don't be fooled by them. Little boy, that Bayu really has nothing to see, Go to my house to see my family's heirloom, only 8 or 2 silver. Go to my house. Just 7 or 2. 6 or 2. Show 1 or 2. Take 2 or 5. Yekong was about to faint. It seems that the Kangnan continent really has family heirlooms. Hey, I don't know if the Lu family's gadgets are worth it. That Lu Jun and Lu Yi were notorious, and when they heard the noise of everyone around them, they immediately glared at the bull's eyes and snorted, scared to see the lively people dare not say more. At this time, Dansha at the counter had been found there. Yekong had taken Dansha, and the brothers of the Lu family had also asked the puppet doctor to hire a carriage. Several people drove to Lu's house. On the road, Yekong learned that the Lu brothers went to Tung Chuntang to collect protection fees. Not only did he have a bad tone, but he also injured 2 nursing homes. Of course, the divine doctor of other people hated their brother. However, the brothers of the Lu family are helpless. This is what they helped them to get, and all the money received must be turned in. This dragon and snake help is very dark, and the messy life below is not good. It is true, I heard that the helper Fan Julong is a master, and his brother Fan Juji is a powerful character. Yekong shook his head after hearing it. It seems that the underworld of the Kangnan continent has not really started. He had thought about re-entering the old industry. Now it seems that there is no such thing as a selfish boss. He arrived at Lu's house soon, but when this gem had to be moonlight at night, Yekong just recognized the door and waited to watch it at night. Although Yekong's expectation for this family heirloom has been much smaller, but after all we have given the money, we still have to look at it. Afraid that the brothers were in trouble, Yekong reminded before leaving, Lu Jun, Lu Yi, I am the oldest man in Jenny's general's mansion, and I'll go to the house if I have something. Yekong certainly didn't let them find themselves, but just warned them not to play tricks, otherwise we can deal with you. Although no one in the Ye family saw Master 8 as a person, it was still very useful to scare outsiders. The brothers of the Lu family, including the puppet doctor, hurriedly saluted. Yekong waved his hand, no. Immediately after leaving, I heard Lu Jun whisper again and reminded, well, I should send Master 8 back home, with a few dragon and snake tails behind. Yekong discovered the followers long ago, but Lu Jun also found them. It seems that the 2 brothers were not interesting at first. Preparing to let those guys rob themselves, and they don't need to let him see the heirloom. Just a few, just don't need to worry about you. Yekong Kong was a little displeased. Damn, the Kangnan continent is really a good man and can't do it. I'm in a hurry to save you. Then Lu Jun was unhappy at Yekong and did not dare to say more. He only told Yekong to report to his family at that time. Those who were confused would not dare to provoke him. Yekong sneered, did I need to report himself? Just a year of practice, look at the power of these 5 elements of ascension. The Mad Cultivator. Author, Xianxia. Chapter 21. Chapter 20 Murder. On the way back, Yekong quickly broke away from the bustling avenue and embarked on a sparsely traveled path. A few local fans following behind were naturally overjoyed. They followed from the platform. When they saw Yekong's novel soil buns, he guessed that he was a foreigner, and he was ready to start. Suffering from the fact that he had always been on the road, he didn't find a chance. Later, I saw him give out 9 or 2 silvers to the Lu family brothers, and his heart was even more unhappy. When he met the fat sheep, as for the Lu family brothers, they were not taken into account. Lu Jun and they were only the bottom of the gang. Brother, do they dare to do their own thing? In a remote alley, Yekong was finally blocked, with 3 in front of and behind, all holding a knife stick and smirking to greet him. Children, brothers borrowed some silver flowers from you. A rough voice came from behind. Yekong leaned against the wall, looked at the 6 foolish, and sure enough they all had big rounded waists and fierce looks. Bright daylight, long and bright, aren't you afraid of reporting to me? Yekong looks like the sorrowful Confucianists who study hard. Reporter. There are dozens of murders every day in southern metropolis. You little one out there, will someone care about you? That grinning laughter, they were afraid that no one would be afraid of scholars. But I can draw it. I will draw your face when I go to the government. I want to draw a picture, the officers and men will easily find you. I think you should let me go, Yekong said with a smile. The several magpies looked at each other and saw each other's killing in the eyes of each other. Originally, they did not want to kill anyone. Now it seems that they can only kill people and kill them. Anyway, they have not done much. Little guy. It's impossible to let you go, don't blame my brothers, blame your own mouth. The leading brawny man didn't wait until he finished speaking, his face was fierce, and the horned sharp knife in his hand pierced Ye's abdomen. Although the other party is fast, Yekong's eye movements are not a year ago, although he hasn't had a spell yet, he hasn't seen these eyes at all. The sarcasm flashed in Yekong's eyes, and his shot was like electricity, within one pinch, he clamped the sharp knife at his fingertips. The leader stabbed his head forward, but couldn't move forward. Knowing that he would meet his family, he shouted at the other places, "Get your hands together." Yekong didn't wait for the others to approach, and slammed his palm, yelling in his mouth, "Go." With the palm in the middle of his chest, the strong man was flung out by the thin Yekong, hit the wall with a bang, fell to the ground again, and twitched twice. It seems that this skill is really not for nothing. Yekong Gli was pleased, and his feet struck the light work that he had previously learned, and his hands were similar to the deciduous palm of a cloud platform. Those magpies are also three-legged cats. There is no one-in-one combination. Yekong has the agility and strength of the entry fairy, and he doesn't keep his hands at all. The last skinny little man, when he saw that the situation was not right, ran back, and shouted, "The dragon and snake gang will seek revenge from you. Boy! Let me taste the bricks of the hooligans of the earth." Yekong picked up a half-segment blue brick on the side of the road, accompanied by a shadow, followed by a shot on his back. Pop! The sloppy head was just smashed by a broken watermelon, and the red and white objects burst out. His immortal is stupid, really disgusting. Yekong resisted vomiting. This was the first time he had killed himself. Although he was not scared, it was uncomfortable. The last words of the cricket reminded him that he could not stay alive, but facing the crickets that had been seriously injured, Yekong still couldn't help. Cut their throats with a knife? Or continue to pat their heads with bricks? It seems cruel. Yekong wondered. He didn't hesitate to hit the shot. He could kill the seriously injured, but he couldn't help but be soft-hearted already. "Yeah. Kill," the alley suddenly exclaimed. A figure turned and ran out. Yekong knew that he couldn't wait any longer, picked up the bricks and shot them one by one, then shouted, "Kill," and left in the crowd. I have been standing in front of the gate of Yefu, and Yekong was still banging. The first killing was 6 lives, so I was filmed by myself. Master 8 is back. Lisa C smiled and greeted again. NN. Yekong was absent-minded, looked down at his clothes, no blood or brain, and then took a breath and entered Yefu. Some souls returned home unwillingly, and as soon as they entered the door, they heard a harsh woman's voice. "Did you do it on purpose? You knew that Mrs. Second was waiting for this new dress, but it wasn't embroidered yet. Mother who, you just brought it in the morning. I didn't stop at lunch. After a while, it must be embroidered before dark," Chen Juniang whispered. "Before it was dark? Miss the second wife, do you take care of yourself?" Whose mother-in-law's voice came again, and then her voice suddenly softened again, "Or else I will help you speak in front of the second wife. Order something nice. I don't know if Mrs. 2 can listen to it." Chen Juniang suddenly understood, and said in a hurry, "Mr. Who has worked hard. Please accept these $2 or $2. In fact, the purpose of this mother-in-law was to knock on some money. She deliberately sent the embroidery work late and asked for it in advance, forcing Chen Juniang to finish it and giving her benefits. "You're welcome at that age," Grandma Hu immediately became happy when she saw Yinzi. But as soon as he stretched out his hand, he heard someone sneer behind him, "Let others do the work for you, don't give money and don't talk, and you need to get money. Is there such a thing in the world? That mother-in-law who is not a kind person. She is a domineer of Yefu's foreign courtyard. Her son also changed the family name to Ye with her master. The martial arts is very strong, and she has to be respected. So everyone in the foreign courtyard is afraid of her three-pointer. The meaning of the tigers is not too shareable." Grandma Hu also heard some wind recently, but she couldn't see what was terrible in the children. When she was on her hips, the female tiger was very powerful. "Chen Juniang. See how your son speaks to the old man? Want my boy to help the general to teach him less than he can." Ye Kong sneered, "Let your son come. I'll see who has the courage to help Ye Harem teach me." Ye Kong just finished killing people, and the fierce suffocation revealed that there was no doubt that mother-in-law who raised a kind of fear from her heart. Hurry up, I don't care about you ugly mother-in-law whose words were a little soft, but she shouldn't scold Chen Juniang. Slap, a clear slap on the old mother-in-law's face. Mother Hu was snored, and the first response turned out to be asking Ye Kong, "Dare you hit me?" Chen Juniang was also frightened, her mother-in-law's son was martial arts. Before they could stop it, Ye Kong fanned over again. "It's you. You wait," Mother Hu screamed and ran out, covering her face. Chen Juniang was terrified. His son Ye Hai is a martial artist, and he is working on the door. Or, let's take the silver and apologize to her. Mother, Ye Kong supported Chen Juniang's shoulder and looked at her eyes firmly. "Mother, don't worry, Konger has grown up, I can protect you. Do you believe me?" Chen Juniang looked at Ye Kong, and his deep eyes were full of firmness and perseverance, just like a man in charge of a 27-foot man. "Mother believes you." Soon, Ye Kong returned to his room. He knew that Ye Hai had really practiced martial arts. He could be described as having high martial arts, rich experience, and Ye Harem could do tricks. It was not the same as those who had just killed. 1 or 2 grades if you and Ye Hai are up against each other, relying only on the agility and stealing the semi-detailed martial arts, you don't even have a chance to win. Therefore, we must pay close attention to time to draw the symbols. Although the yellow paper symbols are used to treat people, some of them can also play a role in defeating the enemy. Ye Kong initially prepared to draw a rune. The effect of this charm is to give the patient a last breath. To die, the soul must ascend to heaven. In order to allow the patient to retain his last breath and delay the ascension process, there is a determinant of this soul. The principle of this rune is to isolate the soul and make it unable to move. At the same time, it also interrupts the connection between the soul and the limbs. With this rune, the brain is still clear and can hear and see, but it can't move at all, even blinking. Also cannot. At dusk, the room was bright outside, and the fiery red sunset in the distance made everything in the room gilded with red. Ye Kong put down the yellow paper and pressed the paper head with paperweight. Then he took the pen, washed it, put it in water, crushed a small piece of dandelion, and used the prepared aragonite to suppress the honing slowly. While grinding the tan sand, he immersed his consciousness like a spiritual platform, opened the Daquan Encyclopedia, and set the strokes and requirements of the rune, and finally remembered it again. In fact, according to the book, before painting, you must bathe and change clothes, burn incense and worship, bow to heaven, and ask Tai Shang Lejun to help. Ye Kong disagreed with these. He really couldn't see any connection between bathing and changing clothes and drawing symbols. As far as asking Tai Shang Lejun for help, it was even more crap. No one in Kangnan believes in these things. In Yekong's view, the reason for sorrowing is that you are too strong, and you can't tolerate it in this world. The heavens are balanced, and that only sends you away. These are questions of strength, not whether you believe it or not, or wash up.